would like to introduce them real quickly. We're going to do it in alphabetical order. So first, going from my nearest to the farthest, we have Harry Howe.
Hi there.
Next is one of our two incumbents, Jay Kramer. Next to him is Randy Old. Next to him is Jack Shue. Next to him is our second incumbent, Pilar Turner. And next to her is Charlie Wilson. And again, thank you to all 6 of you for joining us here today. We really appreciate you coming out so that everybody can hear all the different opinions that we hope you'll share with us today. The format's going to be as follows. We're going to start with the 6 candidates. We're going to start on this end first with Harry, and then we're going to work down that way as far as a 2-minute introduction. And then after that, I'm going to ask 6 different questions. Each of the candidates will have 90 seconds each to answer. There's going to be 5 group questions that will be addressed to all of the candidates, and then I've got 1 set of questions that the board formulated for each one of the individual candidates. So that's going to take the same amount of time as it would for 1 question, but it was to try to get some extra answers out for some of the other candidates. And then at the end, there will be a 90-second summary from everybody, and that's going to work back the opposite way. So since Harry got to go first on that time, we'll start with Charlie at the end there, coming back when they do the summary portion. And we're just going to start this way down as far as the first one to answer the first questions when I do start asking the questions. Okay? Okay. Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear, did you tell if there are cards on the tables?
Yes.
Or...
Thank you, Madam Secretary. I am falling behind on my duties. Yes. There are membership cards for any of our guests here today that would like to join. They're out on the table. It only costs $25 to join our association. As you know, or at least I hope you know if you've ever heard me on the radio or heard me up here before, we don't make anything for the cost of the meals. It's $18. That goes strictly to the country club for the use of the room and for the meals. We don't make $1 on any of that. So the $25 dues for the year just helps us as far as covering any of our advertising costs and so forth. We've also placed index cards out on the tables for anybody that would like to submit a question, and if you have any of those filled out during the next 10 or 15 minutes, just raise your hand and we will have a board member come out and pick those up from you. Okay? So with that, I think if everybody is ready to get started, you guys all set?
Good.
Okay. I think with that, we're going to get ready with the first question here. Oh, I'm sorry, opening statement, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Everybody hear me okay? I'm Harry Howe. I'm a resident of Vero Beach. Have been for 25 years. Lived here and worked here. Made a lot of great friends here, and Vero Beach has been terrific to me. So I would like to return that to the city by serving all of you and being your voice. We have a lot of very pressing issues that we need to discuss today and in the future, some of which are most important to me, the sale of the electric utility system to FPL. We have and I believe this can still be done, I really do. We have the lagoon. The lagoon is a precious asset and we must protect the lagoon. And all decisions within reason need to be made to help the lagoon, not to harm the lagoon. I believe that we could streamline the regulatory process for new business owners in the city. Currently, we have a situation where new business owners are really held back from doing what they want to do, which is make money and provide a service, because it's too convoluted. It's absolutely too convoluted in the way that you would want to open a business in this town. And we need to have these folks, instead of talking to 4, 5, or 6 people, talk to 1 or 2 people. And finally, I believe in zero-based budgets. Just to quickly familiarize you with that, You take the budget, you look at it line by line, you trim the fat, and believe me, folks, in all government, there's always room for saving. Thank you.
My name is Jay Kramer. I am the incumbent this year. One of the advantages of being an incumbent is that a lot of people know who you are. And one of the disadvantages of being an incumbent is a lot of people know who you are. You know, we've all had an awful lot of disappointment over the last 4 years. And you know, one of the things that I wrote down in my office, and I've still got it on my wall, is that there's things that you'd like to do, and there's things that you can do. You know, there's a lot of things we'd like to do, but you know, the mechanics of which it just doesn't seem to happen. You know, and unfortunately, that causes a lot of divisiveness in our community, and that's one of the things I really need to work on the next couple of years, is trying to find solutions that everybody can live with. I'm trying awfully hard to do that. I'm trying to be accommodating to an awful lot of people. But you know, we need to start working on our lagoons. We need to start working on our infrastructure. You know, we can't put aside the mechanics of working on our city. We can't put that off forever. And it's time that we get back to doing a lot of that stuff. I'm very proud that we've been able to reduce the expenses of the city. We've reduced it by about 3.4%. We've held the line on healthcare. Healthcare costs went up. We held the line on it, and you're not paying for it. Almost 28% of the employees at Vero Beach are gone. You know, if you want to take a tour through Vero Beach, you'll see about 1 in 4 offices are vacant. But in any case, you know, I recognize everybody here, and it looks like a great meeting, and I really appreciate the Taxpayers Association for having us. Thank you.
My name is Randy Old. I'm new to this whole process, so I'll introduce myself. I'm from just outside of Boston, Concord, Massachusetts. I went to the University of North Carolina. I was in Far Eastern Studies there. I had 4 years of Chinese. Then I translated Japanese in the Army for 3 years. I was hired by Chase, went out to Singapore, then Tokyo, and opened a branch in Jordan. In the Middle East. After that, I was hired by a Midwest bank to open a office in London for their African and Middle East offices. And then after that, I was hired by the Federal Reserve and the Central Bank of Jordan to close a bank that was in Washington that had a lot of fraud and issues in it in about 30 countries around the world, and I've successfully closed that. While in Jordan, I was head of a archaeology department there, our archaeology institute there. We do about 16 digs a year, and here I'm chairman of the Vero Man Site Committee. I'm also on the finance commission of the city. I approach issues like coming into this new candidacy like archaeology. I try to assemble all the facts, come up with a picture, and turn the picture into a goal and then a plan. I very much like the idea of being on the council, and I would love to have a vote. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Jack Shoup. I'm a 7-year resident of Vero Beach. I come from Washington, D.C., where I was the director of cartography at National Geographic Society. I manage a large department, a large budget, travel widely. We dropped anchor here in Vero Beach. My wife has 3 sisters, which keeps her pretty busy. And our son and daughter-in-law also bought a condo recently in Central Beach. And my point is that we've dropped anchor here. This is our home. And we love Vero Beach. I'm the past president of our Homeowners Association. Presently, I'm the vice president of that organization. I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and presently I'm on the Utilities Commission. And for the last 2 years, I have volunteered with ORCA as an associate board volunteer. And my interest is in serving the city. And I found it interesting. I looked at an organization chart of the city of Vero Beach, and I noticed the top box bracketed is the citizens of Vero Beach. When you drop the line down to the next box, it's the city council. I strongly believe that we're at a point where, as a city councilman, that we should be listening to what the citizens want and let it bubble up to us. And I'm not one to come into the council with a strong personal agenda.
For 4 years, I've served on your city council. Throughout those 4 years, I have remained true to my values: fiscal conservatism, limited government, and exiting the electric utility business. The voters have made it clear that they want to complete the sale of the electric company. However, the Florida Municipal Power Association, the FMPA, has refused to negotiate, and they have broken the resolve of this council. The possible exit of Indian River Shores and the county would pose tremendous financial challenges to the city, threatening its viability. We have to find a way out. Both Indian River Shores and the county agree the best solution is to sale to FPL. Just like the threat of the trains, we have to fight what other people say is impossible, insurmountable. We have to find a way out. And your voices can make a difference. If you look at the front page of the paper this morning, Olive Board's now saying it's going to seek private funds. We can make a difference. One voice may be ignored, but thousands of voices will be there. 3 years ago, I brought forth an ordinance to limit fertilizer in the lagoon. This has now been scientifically shown to reduce the nitrogen and phosphorus. The city has met the Department of Environmental Protection requirements for discharges. But we don't think this is enough. We're going to continue to be doing more projects to clean up the lagoon and try to find a cost-effective way to remove the septic tanks off of the lagoon. The resolution of the utility issue is critical. Yep.
Thank you. My name is Charles Wilson, and since 2009, I've been fighting to get us out of the electric business. And if I am returned to the City Council, I will have us out of the electric business by the deadline of 2016, period. Now let's get some things done at the outset. I am for the lagoon, I am against the train. I do not believe taxes need to be raised. This issue of short-term rentals has been addressed by the public, and I agree with them. We have moved the GO line out of the residential area of Vero Beach, and as long as I am alive, there will not be a parking meter inside the city limits of the city of Vero Beach. Now that we've done with all that, let's talk about the electric business. Okay. While I admit that what the Press Journal referred to as a do-nothing, foot-dragging city council has made the sale much more difficult and much more expensive, it still and should be done. So what do we hope to accomplish by the end of today? This is one of our few forums, and what I'd like to accomplish by the end of the day is I'd like you to be able to determine three things. First, that getting out of the FMPA is the only answer. The FMPA presents a clear and present danger to the future and the health of our city, to the future and health of our lagoon, and to every other issue we could possibly discuss. The second thing that I'd like you to be able to determine by the end of the day, if you listen carefully, is to determine who is for getting out of the FMPA and who pretends to be for getting out of the FMPA. It's not good enough to say, I'm for the sale. What are you going to do to make it happen? Because so far that has been zero. Now, it's not personal to any of these fine people. But what you're going to find by the end of the day, and I hope you realize, is that there are actually not 6 people up here. There are 2 teams. Okay? There's a team of Mr. Kramer and Mr. Old and Mr. Shoup who will do absolutely nothing to get us out of the FMPA. There is a team of Ms. Turner and Mr. Howell and Mr. Wilson who absolutely will get us out of the FMPA. So, ladies and gentlemen, Bob Shane said it. Oh, people of Vero, don't you think it's a scandal how the people have to pay and pay? Fight the rate increase, vote for Charlie Wilson, get us out of the FMPA.
Thank you all for those opening statements. Harry, we're going to start with you here, and then if you would just pass the mic down, just like you just did, and then the next question will start with Jay.
Sure.
The first question is as follows. There were differing opinions aired during this year's City Council budget meetings when it came to the possibility of raising the city's property tax millage rate. Do you favor keeping the tax rate the same, or do you feel that it's necessary now, or possibly in the near future, to raise the rate in order to increase the level of services required to maintain the city properly? This assumes, of course, that property values remain stable in the near future.
Well, I'm fiscally conservative, and in that, I believe that we will never see a situation where we have to raise the millage if we go about our budget the correct way. I think that we have a terrific city as it is now. We always have room to improve, and the millage rate will not need to increase if things are done correctly. Right now, we're wasting money on things that it does not need to be wasted on. You can earmark, if you will, probably the wrong terminology, earmark those specific items and eliminate them. And you've just bought yourself an untold amount of time to leave taxes where they are. That is all. Thank you.
Over the last 4 years, the tax rate has been adjusted here and there, but it remains mainly the same. As far as services, I think the people of Vero Beach want to keep their services. They're very happy with them. We really do not need to raise those taxes. In fact, the reserves have been the highest they've been in the last 5 years. So, over the last 4 years, we've been able to increase the reserves, keep the services, and keep the tax rates stable. I don't see any reason why we need to change that going into the future, and if there's a reason to raise the taxes, I have not seen it just yet.
When I got involved here, I went back over the last 7 or so years and looked at what happened to the millage rate, and actually it's gone down 10%. It was 2.2 in about 07, and now it's 2.03, and it's really gone down. I have reviewed the budget. I've gone through the budget. I don't see any reason where we need to go up. I don't see anything on the horizon that would make us go up. So no, I don't think we'll need to do it either.
I think the city has done an excellent job in managing the budget and the level of the services, the size of the staff, considering the down economy that we find ourselves in. And I would not be one to advocate raising the millage rate.
I have worked very hard over the last 4 years to reduce the size of our city government, to cut down the waste, and to keep our taxes rate low. And I will continue to do that and look for cost efficiencies and energy conservation. However, we have some serious challenges facing the city. Without the sale of the electric, we have a $100 million liability in unfunded pensions and other post-employment benefits. That equates to $66,000 for every man, woman, and child in the city of Vero Beach. Certainly, that would need to be addressed.
Hate picking on people. I'm shocked that in the press journal interviews, the written answers to questions, that 3 candidates, and they happen to be Mr. Kramer, Mr. Old, and Mr. Chu, all wrote in their interviews that they would look at raising taxes as if it became necessary. I would also like to point out that in the political theater that happened yesterday at the city council meeting, reported to in the press today, that one thing became clear. Because of the failure to do the sale, and because of the suit from Indian River Shores, that Mr. Kramer has said he does not see as a serious problem, that the taxes for Vero Beach would have to go up 75%. And the utility cost would have to go up 20% to make it that we would be paying almost 50% more for our electric rates. So when you say the taxes can't go up, and that there's no need for taxes to go up, you may not have the choice. And why? Because we have been stymied and prevented from going forward with the electric sale. Vote Charlie Wilson, Paul Turner, and Harry Allen.
Carly, in fairness to Jay, I am going to let him briefly respond to that, just because we did kind of go over, if you all want to say the incumbents, or if you want to say people that have a different view, but rather than calling somebody out by name and then him having to go back and say, Charlie, that's not what I said, or that is what I said. So I mean, no, I am going to give Jay a brief moment.
Let's just move on.
Are you sure? Okay, okay. All right. We're going to have a quick follow-up question to that, since you all basically answered it basically the same way. Since Vero Beach does have one of the lowest millage rates in the state, would any of you be in favor of raising the millage rate while simultaneously lowering the city's dependency on the amount of the utility transfers to the general fund? And that's basically just a yes or no question. We don't need a whole long answer, but just basically, would you be in favor of doing that, raising the millage rate if that allowed you to lower the transfer from the utility rate to the general fund?
Thank you.
Yeah, you go to the next question.
Would not be necessary.
It's not necessarily a yes or no question, it's an economic question, but we've done that twice already. Nobody seemed to notice.
No, we should not.
No.
Yes, since we cannot provide competitive electric.
Agree with Mr. Howell, it's not necessary.
All right, Jay, this question is going to go to you first. Regarding all aboard Florida, those opposing the project have differed in the approach they believe local governments should take in addressing the high-speed rail project. If you are against the project, would you support using taxpayer dollars towards the hiring of attorneys and/or consultants in order to try to outright stop all aboard Florida? Or do you feel it would be better serve the city's residents to work with the company in obtaining as many financial concessions as possible in order to mitigate any negative impact on Vero Beach?
First of all, I think it's a real dangerous and slippery slope once we start taking public money and start spending it towards lobbyists. You know, the first year you might think that's a great idea, but then if you know, the philosophy of the council changes, all of a sudden it's just not a great idea anymore. It's just something we just don't want to get into. All aboard Florida really doesn't give us any benefit whatsoever here in Indian River County. We can all agree on that. It's just no benefit to us. And I think there's a lot of groups out there that are going to fight this thing. However, we've got to be ready if it does come. And I want to say if, because I would like to really hope that this thing is not going to happen. And we've directed the city manager not to sign leases with all aboard Florida in trying to stop this thing from happening. I think this is a community effort. We've got to get with the other communities. This is done at the federal level. We need to have a big voice, and we need to get our other communities together so that we can make a difference.
I agree with Jay. I think that within the community is where we need to start, and there are a number of groups working on this now. As soon as the impact study came out, a lot of people are working on this. I'm certainly involved in it because the Vero Man site is on both sides of the railroad, and we have a strong argument that needs to be mitigated by the railroad if it comes through. So there's a lot of people working on this, and you've kind of got to do it on the underground and then spring it at the very end, just before the 72 days are up, or the 75 days are up, and that's where we are. We've got a lot of people working on it. There's a lot of things we can do in terms of mitigating the effect on the city.
I think a lobbying effort just in the city would not be enough. This is clearly a regional problem, and only if our neighbors to the north and our neighbors to the south agreed with us for that lobbying position would it have any impact.
John, I think maybe this question's gotten, I guess I thought the question was that we would use taxpayer money to fight the train, or we would negotiate. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I would say we have got to go with everything we have to fight this train. It would seriously deteriorate our quality of life here in Vero Beach. I think we all have to be sending letters to the Federal Rails Agency, and I hope everyone will be there for the EIS hearing on November the 5th.
We should use every tool we can to stop this awful, awful, awful train. Now, they want us to believe that the electric sale is dead and the train is alive and can't be stopped. Well, I think we've got that backwards. You know, the electric sale should be alive and the train should be dead. Now, sometimes the best way you can tell where you stand on an issue is who you stand with. And I want you to know that I stand with Joe Negron, Debbie Mayfield, Pilar Turner on the electric issue, and I also stand with them, as well as with Phyllis Fry, someone I admire and respect, and the Citizens Against the Train on the train issue. I want to make one other way to stop the train that's a good idea: elect a Republican Senate. Why? The current chairman of that committee is Rockefeller from West Virginia. With a Republican Senate, that chairman would then be John Thune from South Dakota, a conservative. The ranking member of that committee would switch from Bill Nelson to Marco Rubio. If you want to stop the train, elect a Republican Senate. Thank you.
The railroad company has not been honest with us from the beginning. How can you trust them? How can you trust anyone who's not honest with you when they're vying to take a piece of your community away from you? I would like to see no public funding going to assist this effort, and if I have the opportunity, I'll be sure that that happens. Thank you.
All right, with that, this is now going to be the round where we're going to have individual questions that our board prepared for each one of the candidates. So we're going to start with you, Mr. Old. In the Press Journal and other interviews recently, you have stated, and I quote, "The utility sale was done and approved. Now it is up to us to get it done. And so far, we have been unsuccessful in closing that transaction. What would you do differently to close the sale than previous councils, and do you feel therefore the sale is not dead, as some others have routinely stated is the case?"
When I first came into this, I've met with Florida Power and Light twice. I went up to the FMPA, spent the day up there. I've gone to OUC. I've read back from '79 to now all the documents I can get my hands on. And I've gone through everything in as much detail as someone who's not a utility person and not a lawyer could understand. And so I think I've got my hands around it to some degree, as well as a neophyte could. And I don't see a way through it. I don't see an answer to it. It's got to be an expert that finds their way through this. Suing is not going to do it. What happens when you sue, and I've been through many, many, many lawsuits, is you end up with people not saying, no, but hell no, I'm not going to deal with you. So suing or going through a legislature issue is not one. I think you've got to back up and start again almost here. This is a very tricky situation, and I don't see any way through it right now. But I'm not against trying hard to do that.
Okay, no, I'm sorry. Yes. Mr. Shue, one of the concerns raised during our forming of these questions was that your campaign platform seemed to be based slightly more on generalities rather than specifics. We are all in favor of responding to the needs of our citizens, keeping our city safe and prosperous, maintaining a sustainable Vero Beach. Then, for example, in answering the press journal question regarding the electric sale, you wrote, "The sale has been approved. Our contract with FPL runs until 2016. There are concerns that have stalled the process for the moment. I await the outcome of the deal." The city faces many tough issues in the coming years, and it's impossible to respond to the needs of all of our citizens, unfortunately. Can you please address the concerns that we have as far as taking a tougher stand on some of the issues that might be facing the city in the upcoming term?
Well, the issue that everyone wants to discuss, of course, is the electric sale. And as I said in my answer to the Press Journal question, the way I view this at this moment is that the city of Vero Beach has demonstrated that they are a willing seller of the operation. And Florida Power and Light is the only buyer that we have that is interested. We all know about the contractual difficulties that laid it to rest for a moment. But clearly, we only have this one person interested in buying it. They have a document produced by us, a sales agreement that is valid until December of 2016. And I'm not saying I want to sit on my laurels and wait till then, but clearly this is Florida Power and Light. They have to take next steps. They know what we know, and if they're really interested, they've got to come back and demonstrate to the city of Vero Beach how do they want to move it forward. And believe me, if it had been sold and the city made out well for the city and we got lower tax rates, I was all for it. I mean, so I think it's in the hands of Florida Power and Light right now.
Thank you, Jack. Mrs. Turner, many people here, myself included, have loved ones buried in Crestlawn Cemetery. It has been repeatedly reported that you either were in the past or are currently in favor of selling that cemetery. Could you please clarify your position on this subject, and do you understand why those of us who feel this is a uniquely special place would be concerned with the possibility of it being sold?
Thank you. To clarify things, there was never a vote to sell the cemetery. Therefore, I never voted to sell the cemetery. In 2013, when we did a budget review, we were going through finances of the cemetery, and that's where we had the discussion. And as a fiscal conservative, the cemetery, as an enterprise fund, was in serious trouble. It had no reserves. It had raided the trust fund that was supposed to support it, and it was running $100,000 a year deficit. And that was my issue with the cemetery. I asked the city manager to come up with a strategic plan to help preserve it.
Well,
Mr. Wilson.
You left.
Civility is being stressed by one of the associations endorsing candidates this year as an important trait for those seeking to hold this office. The exact quote is this: "We are addressing concerns that the City Council conduct the city's business in a rational, professional manner, unhampered by personal agendas." There's also been a recent push by some to limit the time spoken during the public comment section. I'm not saying that that's directed at you. However, others have stated that that was the case, that at least you were one of the people that was, according to your address. Can you address this topic as how it relates to your perceived electability by some who are covering this race?
Thank you, and thank you for the question, since I've been so civil already today. I always like to get lectured about civility by the blogger thugs being the most uncivil group of people ever. And the one thing that I remember is when I was a kid, I met Barry Goldwater. And one of the things that Barry Goldwater said is that passion in a righteous cause is not wrong. A lot of times people ask me, why are you so angry? I'm not angry. I'm determined. I'm determined to get this done. And one thing that does bother me is deceit and deception. This city, our voters, our ratepayers, and our taxpayers have been victims of deception for years. And it's time to stop. So if somebody thinks it's uncivil for me to point out differences that are important, let me tell you something. This is our last chance to get this done. It is important to know who's for one thing and who's for another. Not by the Indian River Neighborhood Association's talking points. And these things have to be shown to people so they can have the information to make an accurate judgment. So, if I've been uncivil, I really am sorry. And if I have offended anyone, please forgive me, I am sorry. But I absolutely, positively will not stop having the truth be known. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.